Welcome to Under the Hood, your fortnightly insight and recap into accounting's leading topics and practical insights. Brought to you by Accountants Daily.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Under the Hood, brought to you by Accountants Daily. Another week passes us by, which means another podcast episode is here. Happy almost September to you all, which is just crazy to say. I swear it was January just yesterday. I hope you're all steaming through this third quarter before we enter the final one of the year. As always, my name is Imogen Wilson and I'm sitting in the podcast studio this morning with a very interesting guest who is going to chat about some research he has conducted which might surprise you. Joining me today on Under the Hood is Chartered Accountant, ex-Deloitte partner, business founder and now principal of his own advisory business, Eddie Senatore. Ezio, what a stacked list of achievements and titles. How are you? Welcome.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And while I'm here, I don't want to turn the podcast around, but I also want to congratulate you for your energy and enthusiasm into this, accounting industry sector. It's really welcomed.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. And I must say, you look fantastic this morning. For people that are listening or tuning in, they can't see this fantastic suit he's wearing, but he's looking very dapper.
Yeah, dressed for the occasion.
How has the start, or not even, how has your year been? It's not even the start of the year anymore.
No, it's been great.
Yeah?
It's quite a diverse bit of work this year, and the white paper and the time that we've invested in putting that together has really fast-tracked the year. So as you say, we're now in September, and not too far away from Melbourne Cup Day. And when Melbourne Cup Day arrives, that's when I say the year ends. So we don't have much time left in this year. So it's been a good year, good mix of work. Spending a lot of time with directors and shareholders with disputes. Spending a lot of time with accountants talking about their practices and how they're finding clients, and a lot of restructuring and valuation work. So it's been quite a mixed bag. Good stuff and not so good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for everyone tuning in today, like I said, Eddie has conducted some research which will really interest a lot of you and maybe even offend some of you because it is a little bit controversial, but it's why we're here to talk about it today. Yeah. But if you are a regular Under the Hood listener, it wouldn't be an Under the Hood episode if, Eddie, I didn't ask you to introduce yourself, give us a little bit of an insight into who you are, your career, and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you for that. Well, it's a long-ish career because I started in the chartered accounting industry whilst I was going through university, looking to pick up some money so I can just get on with life and go to university, play a bit of rugby, and earn some money to do that. And I stumbled into the field of insolvency, which some would say is lucky, not your standard sort of introduction to interns or startup chartered accountants. Usually go into an auditing type practice or an auditing cycle to learn skills, or an accounting practice to learn and understand tax. So straight into insolvency. Professional year was very difficult because 90% of it is tax, audit and accounting, and very little on insolvency, so stumbled through that. But most of my career, 30 years, has been in the insolvency and reconstruction space. And in the last few years, I've also picked up some skills around mediation because I realised that a lot of the work that small business owners are grappling with, disputes amongst directors and shareholders, forms a big part of that. And I was trying to eliminate the title of being an insolvency practitioner. As if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So the more skilled you become, you can then put your optics over it and say, well, there's different solutions here possibly. And that's led me to do this. What's led me to do the white paper is in fact that insolvency industry, and it's a bit of a head scratch because over the 30 plus years that I've been in the space, the insolvency statistics have remained the same, and more recently they've increased. Yet technology's really come a long way, and it's a bit of a head scratch that we can now download bank statements automatically. Xero or Mile can now punch out profit and loss statements or draft management accounts. But yet we're seeing business failures for reasons such as not being able to maintain your books and records still as one of the number one reasons as to why corporations go broke. And that's sort of triggered some curiosity in me, saying, what's the story here? Like, with all this advancement in technology, surely we can be asleep at the wheel and the numbers come out anyway because they chase us because we've got the technology for it. So I thought, why don't I go and talk to people at the coalface from the accountants and the bookkeepers' perspective, because I think the bookkeepers are really interesting people to talk to. I'd like the idea of trying to change the way we look at numbers as opposed to producing the information which then becomes a historical fact. And so what we do as accountants is tell the story. It would be nice knowing that story, talking to people like the bookkeepers to then try and, predict the future, or at least give the future some direction. So that's why I've done it, because I'm on this mission to reduce business failing statistics. And that's a big mission. It's probably only going to make a small dent. But if we can save one or two, then, the job's done. So I've spoken to accountants and bookkeepers. It's very busy, unsponsored, and I'm grateful, I have to say, to the accounting and bookkeeping profession, because they did devote a lot of time in conversation with me, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half, taken out of their day. And we know that accountants are busy and we know bookkeepers are busy. So that's the background. I was wanting to take that information now and put it back out into the industry and say, have a look at this. And as you say, some of this might be controversial, and I'm happy to take the hits on that, because unless we start pushing the boundaries, we may not change. And I think we do, particularly with AI and other bits and pieces. And there's a couple of topics, a couple of themes coming out of the research work, which I think dovetail nicely in with AI, but that wasn't the reason why we did the research work.
Well, you've clearly done the research and have got it to back it up, what you're saying. So take us back to the basics. So when did this, come across your desk? And then where did you go to from there?
So it came across my desk because I'm seeing social media now across a lot of platforms. LinkedIn now is becoming more comparable with the Instagrams.
I love LinkedIn.
and the TikToks. So you're starting to see videos, you're starting to see podcasts like this out there.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through the streams, trying to pick up as much information as what's happening in this industry sector from as many sources as possible. And I've just seen this recurring theme about, distress, failure. And that just, as I say, piqued that curiosity. I said, well, I'm going to talk to people as to why this is happening. So why are your clients hitting the wall? And let's have that conversation. So I structured a series of questions. It's about 20 in total, but we spent a lot of time going off tangent because people had their specific ways of doing business, and I was really curious about that. And that's what's led to a few of the themes that are coming out of the paper, and I then turn those themes into suggestions for others that they might want to think about doing some of these things that what I call the outlier accounting. Some of the accountants, that's the distribution curve is very similar bell curve, and there were some really interesting accountants who are outliers at the top end that are doing some interesting and structuring their businesses in different ways and being really successful at it. And I think that knowledge, if it's shared amongst the industry, may reduce the stress and anxiety with how you run your practice. And one of the themes that came out of it is client selection and client retention. And there's not a lot of accountants, and let's put some context around that. So in the end, we ended up speaking to about 100 accountants and bookkeepers.
Okay. 100 accountants and 100 bookkeepers, or combined?
Combined.
Right.
And the split would be, let's say 80-20, 80% accountants, 20% bookkeepers.
Yep.
And I asked this question about client selection, and very little work's done around client selection. The client comes in, let's do the work. Let's get the work, bank the work. Is there any work done around client satisfaction surveys? So like, is client satisfied with your work and the level of work you're doing? So very rarely is that being done with clients. And we're not talking about doing, some do, but we're not talking about doing these complex surveys. Could be as simple as just engaging an independent person to ring up a few clients saying, hey, talk to me about Imogen, how's she performing? Is there more you want to see out of her?
Don't answer that.
Now be honest, because I'm an independent surveyor, so you can be honest.
Yeah.
And do you sit down and go through at the end of your year and say, end of your financial year or calendar year, whenever you do your business strategy talks, as you sit down and look at the client list and go, there are a bunch of clients that just don't respond. And what that does is costs you internally. You pick the file up, you do a bit of work, you talk to the client doesn't return calls, you put the file back down, you put someone else into the workflow. So it really impacts on your profitability. But accountants like to have this bank of clients, and it gives them some comfort, I think. So I was speaking to one accountant. I said, "Well, how's your client success rate?" And they said, "Oh, I mean, I only had one failure in the last couple of years. I had this client, haven't spoken to him for about 5 years." I said, "Hang on. So you've got a client you've not spoken to in 5 years.
Would they still even count as a client?
Well, that's the question, right?
Yeah.
So this is the concept. So it's not a client. Is it just an account? So I don't know if I necessarily call that client a client if I haven't spoken to them in 5 years. In fact, like, why aren't you on the phone saying, hey, we haven't seen you for 12 months. What's happening?
I know some people that pick up the phone to their accountant weekly, even every second day.
Yeah,
You know?
and that's the relationship you should have. And I'll get to this. One of the other themes coming out, which is my favourite theme, we'll get to, so I won't unveil at the moment, and we'll just keep that as a spoiler. But sitting through and going through your client list and saying, because a lot of accountants up there and a lot of accountants are young and they're starting out, and if you say, no, we don't want to service you because you don't fit our profile, we expect, to be engaging and responsive, someone else will pick them up. And what that then means is that you've got an active and engaging client base. And doing that regularly means you'll end up with, a client base that is high quality. What that then does is it filters down through the practice. For your staff, for instance, they're not having to deal with difficult clients. So it takes pressure off that perennial problem about finding where the resource is coming from. That was a question that was asked 35 years ago, and that's going to be a question that's going to be asked from accountants in 35 years' time. Where am I going to find the people? And it might be setting up the practice so that we're dealing with, a good select number of clients that keep our staff happy, which then means retention rates at that level within your staff remain as well. So that was really interesting. And out of that, let's say 80 the accountants, there was probably half a dozen that do review clients. And out of that half a dozen, probably 3 that do surveys. Now, there may be accountants out there listening to this that say, oh, we do surveys. Well, that's great. But there needs to be more of it because we're trying to work out where's the value that we're giving clients, where they're satisfied. So that was interesting. Another theme coming out was this idea of providing advisory services. I don't know if you hear that a lot when you talk to accountants. We're trying to break into the advisory space, or we do advisory services.
Yeah, everyone wants to do it. It's the hot topic. It's the hot thing that everyone wants to do. And what everyone is, if they say to me, if you were to become an accountant, I would recommend you go into advisory.
Right.
And that's what everyone says that they end up in or that they want to end up in.
Yeah. So the question then is, well, what's advisory?
Yeah, tell us. What is advisory?
Advisory is like advisory. I don't know if I have a specific definition for it, but I think that the accountant's idea of advisory and what advisory actually is are very different.
Right. And
one of the problems with that, and so advisory linked to the numbers. Okay, your GPs, your gross profit margin is not where it should be, or you're not profitable, or look, your wages are blown out, or may be considered advisory, or we produce a set of predictive financial statements, or we do predictive cash flows, and we tell you what those cash flows look like, whether that's advisory.
And you do that?
Well, that's something you just do because you're just naturally curious. Well, for me anyway, I'm just naturally curious.
Yeah.
So the way I operate is I try not to look at the numbers.
Yeah,
I try and talk to the shareholders and directors of the corporation or of any business and just have a conversation about the business. And then I predict in my mind, if I got a set of accounts for this business, what would it look like?
Yeah.
So that's the self-test that I go through. And sure, the way my framing and the way I ask questions does go through like a P&L and balance sheet structure.
Yeah.
But that's not really unveiled in front of the client. It's a conversation.
Do you find sometimes when you have that conversation, you have that, figure in your mind of what it looks like, and then you actually look at it on paper and you go, oh, there's a correlation, or there's actually no correlation, and they're actually way more positive to what it is on paper?
Yeah, so those surprises,
Yeah.
and then you start saying, well, based on the conversation, I had this expectation.
Yeah.
So why is this not showing me that? Or based on this conversation, and I've got the numbers, great, and I'm a hero because I got it right,
I'm so good at this job.
Yeah, so good. That's why you pay, But then there's the other part of advisory, which is just talking to the client. And there's a famous academic in America that does a lot of work in the culture space, Edgar Schein, and he says that what we lack in the world at the moment is just this concept called humble inquiry, and it's just having a conversation with the client. So if you're let's just say for a minute, Imogen, you're a builder, and you come in and we have this conversation, and I say, how's it going, Imogen? What's happening in the world? So there's really broad, open questions, and you say, I don't know, it's getting pretty hard out there, you say, maybe not with that voice. I say, well, that's a clue, right? So what do you mean it's getting hard out there?
I have $0.
Yeah, right. Okay, and that's changed? It's changed from just recently? What's changed? What's made that happen? What do you think's driving that? Or the classic, it's not like it used to be. We'd go out there and make a quote and, win the job. So what's changed that it's not like it used to be? So we're driving down these questions. They will ultimately lead to the business and the numbers, but it's a different connection. You're trying to connect the operator with the business because it's the human that's driving it. So we need to understand the human a bit more, I think. So a builder would come and say, well, how are your job pricing? So it might be that it's job pricing. We just put 20% on our jobs, and you're saying, okay, so that's your markup. And the builder might say, yeah. And I say, so you're ending up with a margin of about 16, 15%. And the reason I would ask the questions and have the conversations that way is because margins and markups are two different concepts. But builders often get that wrong. And if they respond by saying, no, margin's 20. No, so you just said markup was 20%, which means your margin's got to be 16%. So if you want a 20% gross margin, you've got to mark up 32%. It's like an inverted pyramid. And then they'll say, I can't do that. I won't win work if I price that. I said, well, what sort of work do you want to win? What sort of market are you in? And you can see how that conversation, then now you're starting to have a conversation about marketing. Well, I'll just take any home that comes along. Really? So you're not sort of sitting in a particular niche of, 3-bedroom home or spectacularly built homes that are valued, the construction costs are not less than $2 million, or we just do renovations. Well, here's the thing. I saw a builder the other day that came in with a T-shirt that said, Mr. Second Story Extension. So what do you think his business is about? Yeah? So I love things like that.
Yeah.
Because it's quite focused.
Yeah.
Or a builder that's called I Build Decks. Well, I know what that's about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's the advisory space, the way I see it. And
Right.
and what that does is it gets you really connected with the client. The numbers then should just follow. So if he says he's marking up 20%, I'll have a look at his P&L. I know I should see a margin of 15 or 16.
Yep.
And if I don't and it's worse, we've got serious problems. Mm-hmm. But if it's better, then we think, okay, what's happening here? Yeah? So that's the advisory services. And I like to twist that a bit too, that maybe we should stop calling it advisory services. And given the climate that we're in at the moment, we should probably call it something like survival services, right?
Right.
Let's get into your business to see how resilient is it.
It's almost therapy services in a way, isn't
right,
it?
Right, yeah. So let's not call it advisory. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
We're doing survival services here.
Yeah.
Like, how resilient is your business? Mm-hmm. What's things like at home? Why are you in business?
Yeah.
Are you achieving those goals? And if you're not, well, what's the point? And then from that, there's so much that you can talk about. Value propositions, profitability, expenses, overheads. The list goes on and on and on. Which then led to another theme coming out of the discussions is that there would be close to no accountants doing work around clients' financial health.
I feel like a lot of accountants would come back and say, that's all we do. Well, that's what we're spending most of our time doing.
Yeah, so I would contest that. I would say that happens at a point of crisis.
Right. Okay.
So if you're like doing your client's work and then you're having a looking at the P&L and balance sheet, and most of that I speak to say we don't sort of drill down on it and we say, yeah, you've made a profit and the balance sheet looks okay, but let's have a real look at it. Yeah, it's only when that comes to that point in time where, you say cash is tight. You said a moment ago. Okay, well, that's good you've raised it now, but how tight is it? Have you paid your wages? Are there outstanding superannuation stuff? Because that tells us how far down the tightness you are. And the further down you are, the harder it comes to turn things around. And this stuff that I'm talking about here lends naturally into advisory services. So here's a, and we don't need to be really complex about this, because once we spend time with the client, we know that they're married and they've got 3 kids and they spend time on the weekend sports and they've got to take up the training and they've got to come home, and so they're time poor. So if you give them a volume of 20 pages about their business, they're not going to read it. But if you can give them 2 or 3 really basic key performance indicators that are not lagging indicators but leading indicators, I think your chances of business owners actually looking at that improve. Now, we did find some people, you're right, there will be accountants out there saying, no, we do that. So we did find some accountants that spend time in the financial health area. And some were really ingenious about how they did that. So they would keep abreast of what's happening in the economy. And so some accountants we spoke to said, what we do is we see what industry sectors have been affected poorly.
Right.
And, for instance, you'd have to be living on Mars if you weren't aware that builders are having some problems.
Yeah, construction's having major issues, and has been for a while.
Yeah, look, it's always in the top 3. Always. And I've just written an article which hopefully I can get to you, and I've
read it on Accountants Daily.
Yeah, please. And I went back to academic reports and research back to 1960. This is almost 175 years back. And the construction's always there, so we know about it. So it's probably going to be an industry issue as to we need to fix what's happening in the industry as opposed to business operators before we start bringing those failures down. But one accountant says, we look at what's happening, builders are in trouble, therefore any allied services to builders are going to be at risk. So we go through our client base and identify all those clients who are construction operators or aligned to construction, and we prioritise them in terms of service, and we get on the phones to them once a month, once every 6 weeks or 8 weeks, saying, how are things? And that's like really simple. It's ingenious. They may have a whole bunch of hospitality clients which are having problems. He pushes them up the chain. He does comparisons between these clients. So this is the power that Xero has, because Xero's got all this data now, and we think of Xero as an accounting software giant, but actually it's going to be a driver of data in years to come. So if you've got a whole bunch of clients that are in hospitality, you can start setting your own sort of, okay, well, this client's doing this and this client's doing that. Not necessarily share the client data, but to inform yourself better so you can engage with the clients. So I thought that was an ingenious way of managing it, managing clients in Strife without actually doing, financial health checks. And another provider who specialises in industry sector only, and Peter just does construction. All my accountants are construction. He says, I've got a really big IT guy who needs a bit of discipline around. He said, no, not touching it. It's just construction.
Right.
The beauty about that is that Peter and his team developed this wheelhouse of skills and expertise and efficiency in working through clients that are in the construction sector, and they pick up on claims and hints with other clients. And I just thought that was a wonderful business. That, if you're wanting to do something, if I had my time again, that's probably what I'd do.
Okay.
I just specialise in an industry sector that's big enough, like construction, and just make it work.
So if we are talking about, the client retention and attraction like you were saying before within your research, would the advice be to accountants out there to do something like that with their clients?
Absolutely.
Do they take their clients and go, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no?
Yep.
Is that what we're trying to get people to do?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, that's scary because you've got to go through and basically you've got to score your clients.
Yeah. And then how do you get rid of a client saying, actually, I don't really want to work with you anymore?
You've got to have the conversation, and this is the piece. The whole world revolves around conversations, not speaking to, in inverted commas, a client for 5 years. It's like, come on.
Well, I'd be writing in my diary that night, dear diary, I just got dumped by my accountant.
Yeah. So you've got to have this conversation. Say, Imogen, look, your business profile's not fitting the client that we like to have. And you would respond, say, what do you mean?
I'd say, Eddie, are you breaking up with me?
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's not you, it's us.
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
No, but it actually is you.
Yeah. So what you hope from that is that, I go, why? He says, well, every time we ask for information, it doesn't come. When it does come, it's erratic. You know, it costs you money for me to do this, and you complain about the fee. And so it's best if, we just, now I can introduce you to a whole bunch of other accountants. Here's the name of 3 people. So but you'd hope with that conversation, these things come up, and so you can have that conversation about the soft issues that are really driving, the relationship apart. And maybe that might be a trigger for them to, pull their socks up and say, no, look, I'll do all that. Give me a chance.
Take me back.
Yeah, take me back. And it's, I think it's a really good exercise to go through, because also it enables you as an accountant to look through your client base and go, well, what is the quality of my clients? And do we lose money? Because remember your other tensions. Licensing software is not cheap anymore, and finding the human capital to do the work is just challenging. And are we what's our retention rate like with our staff? Are we getting to a point where people are just frustrated with the type of clients that we've got and the work they're doing? And do I give myself a better chance of keeping a really good, effective team working together because of the nature of the clients and the diversity of the clients? And so it has, and in fact, in the white paper, there is an example of an accountant that actually went through that exercise of, had 200 clients and sent a dispatch to his clients saying, you've got 3 options. You take our premium, it's a bit like an Apple service. You take our premium, $10,000 a year, and for that you get this, or we can do this, or you can just get your tax returns done. And if that's all you want, then here's the name of a fellow we highly recommend that will do that for the fee that you're wanting to pay. And he thought he'd get a really positive response out of that, but out of his 200 clients, he got 80 acceptances of option 3. So he almost lost 50% of his client base overnight.
Awkward.
Awkward and very, very brave or stupid.
Oh.
But then he goes on to say that it was his most profitable year ever because the amount of the reduced clients meant we could spend more time with them.
Fantastic.
And here's the tension then that I'm hearing the accountant say this out there. Clients, I want to pay for this stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, like we keep saying, cash is tight.
Yeah.
The economy's tight.
Yeah.
It's tough out there paying for an expensive accountant who's just jacking up their prices
Yeah.
when they're needed.
Yeah. So this is
What do they do?
Yeah. So this is the tension. So then we say, okay, big clients, this is big client. Well, as long as you get the information to me in this way, then yes, that fee. But let's have another conversation. So you're a builder, and I can see the statistics that 20% to 26% of builders in Australia will end up hitting the wall, all those involved in the building industry. I've got 4 construction clients. I don't want you to be that one client that I lose this year. And for the sake of paying an extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, I would say that what we're proposing to do in this offering is that you will get more value back than the extra that's going to cost you, and you will see that affect your business in a positive way and give you more resilience and hopefully more take-home because we're going down this path of value-added advisory services bolted on to the basic compliance stuff that you're happy with. So it's a conversation, and what that means is we now as accountants need to be skilled in selling is an art, right? And we're going to be faced with these objections, so we need to develop skills on how to deal with those objections. And if a client says, no, I don't care, man. I just there's no way. I'm just paying the $2,500. Okay, well, that's fine. But this is what we have. These are our expectations of you. And if you don't meet those expectations, the bill won't be 2.5, it'll be more. So it's just having that conversation. And it's challenging. I know I can hear the accountants now. It's going to be interesting to see if there's any comments after this
Yeah, well, I'll be
podcast.
interested.
Yeah.
I'll be interested. Well, for anyone listening in, let us know what you think of this research. But Eddie, with this research, I'm interested to know, because obviously we've got the accountant side and the client side. With it, was your aim at the accountants to be more proactive with their clients, or are you getting clients to be more proactive with their accountant?
Yeah.
Or is it a bit of both?
It's more focused on the accountants and the bookkeepers, because I think they have a really important role to play in Australian business. And one thing that came out in some of our discussions and from the bookkeepers, this was a really strong theme coming from the bookkeepers, is, and I agree with this, is that our role is just not to do the numbers. Our role is actually to educate and to spend time with people, educating them about how this works. And I think that's the accountant's role as well. That's the problem with having one accountant, for instance, had 1,200 clients. Now, they're not clients to me. They're just, let's just get this in and out, because I can't spend any time with you educating and providing what I've experienced in my years as an accountant to help you improve your business. It's just not possible. So we need to have that firmly in our mind, that we're here to help and educate, because we have had the training. We're lucky enough to have had the training, and I think that should be shared. So I was really really happy to hear that. As I say, that was discussed more coming out of bookkeepers. Handful of accountants, but not a lot, because accountants can influence the space. And what we're talking. Whilst we were talking to them, and accountants, this is not just bookkeepers, but this is more focused on the accountant side, and there was the advisory services, we had this commonality of words. So I've surveyed 80 accountants, and 75% of them said we're the trusted advisor. Now, if we look at ourselves as going to market and trying to win work and good quality work, if we're using terms that everyone else is using, we're not really differentiating ourselves, right? So how can we present that in a different way? And one of the themes that I've really enjoyed thinking about and developed in this white paper, and this is where it dovetails in with artificial intelligence, is this concept of deep engagement. And that was really inspired and from reading a lot of Edgar Schreiner's material about humble inquiry. And what he's doing when he's doing that, he's getting really close with the client. And that deep engagement, I think, is what's going to keep you ahead of the game of AI. And that's where you're going to be a trusted advisor, but with deep engagement, you will win the trust. But it's a different relationship. And it enables you to get into the background business of the client and how you can improve it. And I'll give you an example of this young fellow who was in country New South Wales, moved to the Big Smoke, is now got his own client base. And he said, had this client that sells eggs. And he had this lumpy cash flow every 6 weeks. All this cash had come in. But then he'd have to wait till the chickens laid their eggs and then wrap them all up in basket and then go to market and then bang, another invoice. So I was like...
Side note, great client to have.
Yeah.
Eggs are expensive these days.
Yeah.
Double yolk is in there as well, some farm fresh
Yeah.
eggs.
he was a young fella, and he was really good to talk to because he had this energy, and he said, you know what, so I went out and sought my client, spent some time with him, and I built this algorithm, spreadsheet algorithm, and I worked out that not all chickens lay eggs at the same time, and that we can actually get a curve of when the chicks actually lay the eggs. And we did that, and we decided that we don't have to go to market every 6 weeks now. We can actually go to market every 2.5, 3 weeks.
Right.
And that meant his cash flow then just went straight line as opposed to these lumps. Now, he's not going to know that unless he goes to the farm and spends time with his, chicken farmer mate.
Yeah, sitting around.
And I love those stories because it tells me he knows that business backwards. Now, where's that client going? Actually, you've made my cash flow so liquid now. I just don't think the conversation's going to be around, oh, your bill's an extra $2,000 this month. I don't think that's going to be the conversation. What else I think is going to be the conversation? What else am I doing that you can help me with? And I highlight that. I highlight Peter specialising in industry sector, and I highlight that accountant that spends time understanding the economy to then focus on the right clients at the right time.
Yeah.
And they're really simple things to do. But deep engagement, I think, is where it's at. Now, to get really deep engagement, that means you can't have a lot of clients.
Okay. So is moral of the story here, get rid of most of your clients?
Moral of the story is have a process where your client selection fits in with the profile that you're wanting to develop.
Right.
And I think that's going to be really hard to have a whole bunch that fit that. And you're going to get to this point of a nice level of clients that are paying a nice level of fees that are going to keep your staff busy and engaged and having relationships. So it makes it really difficult for them to say, I'm not getting what I want out of this. So that's one, client selection, client retention. But deep engagement, I think, I'm going to make a prediction that deep engagement will be one of the topics that comes out to be most talked about in the next 10 years or so because of AI and the combat to AI. That's what I'm predicting. So how do we combat AI? Because it's going to be doing everything.
Well, I know that's just another can of worms, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not going to combat relationships and how well I know. And I know when your chickens lay eggs, so I know when to come and see you.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Eddie, now that you've done this research and you've come out with all of these points that we need to be doing actively in the industry, what's next for you? Are you doing more research, or are you just going to help people within this industry uptake these?
So based on this research, what we've done now is, as a result of that, there's been a few accountants have really enjoyed the conversation, and particularly those that have got smaller practices and they don't engage, with a large firm. There's partners and there's managers, and so you can have the interaction. And so we're developing a group called the Accountants Edge, and we're going to get together regularly to talk about these accounting issues. And I'm hoping out of that we can develop practice issues and client issues, what people are seeing out there, to get a lot of input into, well, this is how I would deal with that client in that situation, with a view of, as I say before, the mission here is to reduce business failure statistics. And what I think I will do is probably then pick up on one or two of these themes, and likely to be around advisory or survival services and this concept of deep engagement. And I hope what's going to flow from that is, how do we deal with this objection that I don't want to pay the fee? Because a lot of bookkeepers, especially, and some accountants were saying, we're just viewed as data processors. And we can get that done overseas at $6 an hour. So that whole image needs to change. So with the right client selection and the right services, how you present your practice to the world brings a lot of deep thinking around strategy and go-to-market plays, which I don't know that a lot of accountants do. Once the client's in and they're on a compliance cycle, they're kind of locked in. So some of my conversations started, if the tax commissioner woke up this morning and said, you know what, we don't need to see tax returns. We've got AI and we can see everyone's cash in the bank account anyway, so don't bother lodging tax. We'll just work out what your tax bill is. What would your client base then look like? How many would stay? How many would say, what's going on here? I need more protection. It'd be an interesting. That's how I started some of these conversations. And more often than not, it was greeted with a big laugh, as if there was a bit of insecurity behind that, saying it's a big laugh, but that's never going to happen. But who knows? AI may take over in the tax office. I think the tax office is playing with AI at the moment. So
They are indeed. They are.
yeah. So I think I'll do a bit more work around those two topics because they all interact, interestingly. Deep engagement and client selection and retention.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So for anyone tuning in, definitely have a look at this white paper that we're talking about. I've had a good read of it. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Eddie, where would they be able to find it if they are searching for it? Are they contacting you directly?
Yeah.
You can contact me too. I also have it.
Yeah.
I can put you in touch with Eddie.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And from this white paper, we have had some accountants just ring up and have a conversation. In fact, a couple of the articles that we posted with you at Accountants Daily, I have some accountants actually book time to talk to me just about general practice stuff, which has been really encouraging.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
And it's a safe environment. There's no threats there. We're just talking about the issues, and for me, it's like, how do I approach the small business world, knowing this is how accountants interact with their clients? Because I think the big secret is the more we work together, because we can't be everything. The more services we can offer clients.
Absolutely. So, Eddie, before we wrap up today, because I'm sure we could talk about this all day and all week and all year, what is your 20-second message for accountants out there based on this white paper? What's your call to action?
I think it's start having conversations with clients, not necessarily linked to numbers. They might be the prompts, but get in deep and build the relationships with clients that you can then develop with them and develop their business so that they can achieve their ultimate goal, which I don't think many of us have that conversation with clients, as to where we want to be at the end.
Well, Eddie, thank you so much for joining me
been great.
in studio this morning.
Yeah.
It's been so nice to have you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for letting me share the mission of bringing these business failure rates down.
If you would like to contact me, you can reach me at imogen.wilson@momentummedia.com.au. To all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Under the Hood with Eddie Senatore this morning. Until next time, bye for now.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.